Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button, hit like, and leave a comment because you won't believe how twisted this story gets. You think you know the truth, but you don't. The Dedham night was unusually cold for early December, the kind of chill that creeps under your skin and never leaves. Streetlights flickered against the slick pavement, and the soft hum of distant traffic was broken only by the crunch of a single set of footsteps. Inside a sprawling suburban home, a confrontation was about to erupt, one that would shatter lives and make headlines across the nation. Stefon Diggs, star wide receiver and household name in the NFL, had always lived in the public eye. His fame, fortune, and charisma made him untouchable in the eyes of fans. But inside this house, behind closed doors, he was a figure no one dared challenge, until now. The victim, a private chef in her late 20s, had come to the house weeks earlier, tasked with preparing meals for Diggs and his family. She was meticulous, professional, and determined to do her job well. But when a dispute over unpaid wages escalated, the situation spiraled into something neither of them could control. According to police reports, the confrontation began calmly enough, or at least as calmly as a heated financial dispute can begin. The chef asked about her back pay, a simple, reasonable request. Diggs allegedly reacted with an intensity that stunned her, his temper flaring like a match in a dry room. Words were exchanged, voices raised, tension electrifying the air. The details are disturbing. The chef told investigators that Diggs first smacked her across the face, then wrapped his arm around her throat. Panic surged, breath hitched, and darkness threatened to take hold. Her hands clawed at his arm, desperate, futile, and the world outside the house seemed to disappear. Then, according to the report, he allegedly hurled her onto a bed. The room spun, the walls felt like they were closing in, and a horrifying reality settled in. This wasn't just an argument, this was assault. Police would later arrive after the chef contacted authorities nearly 2 weeks after the incident. She had been hesitant, fearful of the repercussions. Diggs was a public figure, a man with resources, influence, and an army of fans. Her story, if it came out, could destroy careers, reputations, and lives. And yet, she chose to speak, breaking the silence that had kept her trapped in fear. Detectives began piecing together the timeline, questioning neighbors, examining the scene, and documenting injuries that, though not life-threatening, bore the unmistakable mark of struggle. Every corner of the home was scrutinized. Cameras, phones, digital footprints all became part of a growing trail of evidence. But then, just when the investigation seemed to be moving forward, a shocking discovery was made. Hidden behind a stack of delivery receipts and unpaid invoices, police found a sealed envelope containing something the chef had kept secret, a threatening message allegedly from Diggs that suggested this wasn't just about money. Motive, fear, and intimidation collided in black ink on white paper. The investigators exchanged glances, realizing the case was far more complex than a simple pay dispute. The stakes had just skyrocketed, and every detail now mattered. And yet, the most unsettling question hung in the air. What else was hidden in the shadows of this house? Secrets no one had dared to uncover. Detectives returned to the Dedham residence early the next morning, their breath visible in the icy air. The envelope found during the first sweep set off alarms. Its contents hinted at threats, manipulation, and a level of control far beyond a simple argument over pay. But as they combed through the house again, they noticed small details that had been overlooked before. A faint smudge of blood on a doorknob, a chair out of place in the kitchen, and a faint indentation on the carpet that suggested a struggle had moved from room to room. Interviews with neighbors painted a contradictory picture. Many described Diggs as polite, charismatic, the kind of neighbor who waved and smiled. Others hinted at private late-night visits, tense encounters, and unexplained comings and goings. The investigators realized the public persona and private life of Diggs were worlds apart, and navigating that divide would be crucial to the case. The chef, now safe but terrified, met with detectives in a secure location.
She explained that after the assault, she had been offered payment in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement, something she refused. Her voice trembled as she recounted how threatening the tone had been, how she feared retaliation not just from Diggs, but from people around him. Every detail she provided felt like a piece of a puzzle slowly forming a picture of intimidation and fear. Digital evidence began to trickle in. Messages, emails, and phone records suggested a pattern: repeated attempts to silence her, veiled threats, and subtle manipulations that escalated over weeks. It wasn't just a single act of violence, it was a calculated attempt to control, to dominate. Investigators started connecting dots, and the image of a man who could charm stadiums and television cameras by day, but allegedly terrorize someone behind closed doors by night, became undeniable. But the real shock came when a neighbor came forward with surveillance footage they hadn't initially shared. It was brief, grainy, and from a distance, but it captured the altercation. The moment the chef was allegedly thrown onto the bed was caught on camera. Even with the blur, the intensity, the panic, and the struggle were clear. It was evidence that could tip the balance of the investigation, and it painted a stark, undeniable picture of the night's events.
As law enforcement dug deeper, another revelation surfaced. This was not the first complaint lodged against Diggs. A former employee, a personal assistant who wished to remain anonymous, hinted at previous incidents, times when arguments had escalated but never reached police attention. The house was now not just a scene of alleged assault, it was a potential nexus of long-standing patterns of intimidation and control. Then, late one night, detectives discovered something that chilled them to the core. In a hidden drawer in the chef's old workstation, they found a series of handwritten notes, detailed observations she had made over weeks, documenting threats, controlling behavior, and moments of violence. Each page revealed a meticulous account, but the last note ended abruptly with a chilling line. "I fear what will happen if he finds out I'm keeping this." Suddenly, the case was no longer just about money, fame, or a single night of violence. It was about power, secrets, and a growing sense that someone or something was willing to go to any length to keep the truth buried. And just when it seemed the investigation was gaining clarity, detectives discovered a missing piece of evidence. The chef's phone, crucial to corroborating her story, was gone, taken, hidden, or destroyed. Whoever had done it had made sure the trail ran cold, until now. The danger was escalating, and one question hung over the entire investigation like a storm cloud. Who could they trust when the truth itself seemed to vanish? The missing phone was a game changer. Investigators worked around the clock, tracking digital footprints, reviewing backups, and interviewing anyone who might have had access. Each lead seemed to spiral into more questions. Who had taken it and why? But the breakthrough came when a forensic analyst noticed something subtle. An unusual login from a remote location traced to a friend of Diggs, someone who had been in and out of the house during the week of the alleged assault. When detectives confronted the friend, he broke under pressure, confessing that the phone had been taken at Diggs's request. He claimed it was to protect privacy, but the tone of his confession suggested fear of a man whose public charm masked a private ruthlessness. The revelation confirmed the chef's fears. Attempts had been made to silence her, to erase evidence, to control the narrative before it ever reached the authorities. With the phone recovered, the case gained momentum. Messages, photos, and location data now painted a vivid, damning picture. They revealed not only the immediate violence, but also premeditation and threats that had been sent days in advance. The story that had begun as a dispute over unpaid wages was now a portrait of manipulation, intimidation, and terror. Diggs was arraigned in Dedham District Court, a media frenzy swirling around the courthouse. Cameras flashed as he entered, composed, but every step echoed the tension surrounding the case. Prosecutors presented the evidence, the envelope, the notes, the surveillance footage, and the recovered messages. The chef sat in the courtroom, her hands trembling but her eyes determined. She had come forward against fear, against power, and against intimidation. Then, in a courtroom twist that no one saw coming, the defense dropped a bombshell. Diggs categorically denied physical assault, claiming that the confrontation had been exaggerated and that any physical contact was unintentional, a product of a heated argument. Yet the mountain of corroborating evidence, witnesses, video, messages painted a narrative impossible to ignore. The public watched, riveted. Social media erupted with debates over fame, privilege, and accountability. Fans of Diggs struggled to reconcile the man they cheered for with the allegations now etched in headlines worldwide. The contrast between celebrity and accountability was never starker. But the most haunting moment came in the quiet aftermath, away from cameras and headlines. Investigators revisited the house one last time, retracing steps, examining every corner. Behind a loose panel in the kitchen, they discovered another envelope, previously missed, containing photos and receipts that tied back to an earlier threat, proof that the chef had been documenting the escalation all along. The chilling realization hit. She had survived, but the danger had never truly disappeared. As the case moved forward, Diggs faced felony charges, a career hanging by a thread, and a public reckoning that would last years. The chef, though scarred by the ordeal, found a measure of justice, her courage illuminating the shadows where power and fear once reigned. The story didn't end neatly. The questions lingered. How many lives are affected behind closed doors? How many threats go unspoken, unreported? And most unsettling of all, who else is living a secret life, hiding darkness behind a smile? For those who think the nightmare is over, it's only just begun. If you thought this story was intense, hit subscribe because the next one will make your skin crawl.